Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we are going to take a look at the Cooler Master Ncore Max. Now it is a very small ITX case footprint, but it kind of goes on the skyscraper kind of principle in that it has a small footprint, but then they just go upwards with it. Now it is a bundle case because it is the case, but it comes with a power supply and cooling built into it as well. But even though it is ITX and quite a small footprint, they say it fully supports 4090 graphics cards. Now that does with a couple of come with a couple of caveats. But one of the things it does do quite spectacularly is can extend it, and it still kind of looks the same as well. So you can add a lot of extra width for some really beefy graphics cards. But what we really need to do is get busy, get in here and do what we always do and start from the top. Now we always start at the top and at the front, so I guess we should do that now. Now I've got a little lazy Susan to spin everything round on, but the top panel up here with the mesh has the AIO underneath it. As it is at the moment, well, I suppose you can take it out. I was going to say it's difficult to take it out, but you can see the AIO underneath it there. And while we are looking at the AIO, this is a custom radiator. It's actually 38mm thick. I'm not sure though if the 38mm is because they've taken a normal radiator and then spaced these parts away from the fins that little bit more. Now, it does mean you've got thicker end tanks, but the actual fins themselves, to my eyes, don't look like they've been extended. And I reckon if you were to add the end tanks up both sides, you'd probably get sort of like 3, maybe 4mm each side, and if you think about a normal radiator is 30mm thick, you can understand me being a bit apprehensive. Now while we are talking about the top and the front, I'm going to show you this here right now. Just while we are talking about it, you can see it comes with this extra one, and it's this is the extra width that you can add on, which we'll talk about later, but I just wanted to bring it up while we were here. So if I put this top back on, there we go. As I said, we'd normally start at the top and the front, but the reason why we haven't is, at the bottom, this is where the switch is and IO is. And there we have it. And while I'm round the back plugging in the power cable, because I want to show you the icon lit up, which it does very nicely. Then you've got an integrated headphone and microphone, USB-C, 2 USB-A 3.2 Gen 2s, but also the little AIO inside lights up when you turn it on as well, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to show you while we were here. A5 tall aspect, and from the desktop you are looking at 479mm, nearly 480 millimeters from the desktop. And then when we spin it around, you can see I've got the limited edition bronze version. There is a dark grey version as well, but as we spin her around, you can see round the back there are plenty of vents. This is technically where the graphics card will sit on the inside. There is a 120mm fan hidden underneath this section, obviously round the back for the the IO for the motherboard, and then we can keep coming round. This is the graphics card half. Now what I'm going to do is pull the panel off for this section. Now like I said, you can pull it off. There are little pop sections on the back, and then there is a latch for the front as well. But with our first look, we can see close up there of the power supply. The power supply that comes fitted is an 850 watt SFX unit. I have tested the 1100 watt and the 1300 watt models already. I haven't had one of these ones in yet, but it's 850 watt. It actually comes with a 12V8 PWR cable fitted out of the box, but it does come with 3 6+2 pin PCI Express cables as well. So if you did want to go down the AMD route, for example, you have 3 8 pins there for your disposal if you wanted. So 8 pin PCI Express. It does come with a single 8 pin motherboard CPU power fitted, which is nice and short. Now the 8 pin here is very short, and I love it for the fact that it is, because it helps keep things very tidy. The only one that I thought could have been a bit shorter was the 24 pin, but 24 pin connectors can be in multiple places, so they've just played it safe with that one. Most 8 pins are up here. If you do find the 8 pins too short, there we go, might help if you can see 8 pin here, nice and short, 24 pin here, a little bit longer. If the 8 pin is a bit too short for you because you've got a weird place, don't forget you can buy extension cables. Right, so that there, round the back, 120mm exhaust. This 120mm exhaust has a small gap here which does come down into this chamber. That is your gap in reality. There is also a small gap here that comes up the front, but it doesn't actually go into the AIO, which is at the top at all. So that is something to consider. Motherboard airflow is all going to be coming from this section here. So if you are used to having an ITX with an i9 with mega loads of overclock on it, then you might start thinking about having warmer VRMs. But in reality, what we do need to consider, or remember I should say, is the fact that you are going to be trying to cool your CPU with a 120mm AIO. I personally think, for it not being noisy and it being able to do all tasks, not just gaming, so if you're going to do video editing, rendering, that sort of thing, I wouldn't go above an i5 or a Ryzen 5 on this if you want to keep things cool but also quiet. Obviously we can ramp fan speeds up and stuff like that, but that is genuinely just a personal thing. I prefer a slightly quieter rig, and AIOs can warm up fast. Anyway, so there's that section. Now when we come round to the other side, I have pre-pulled the panel off. Okay, so there is a minor edit because we are making some changes. Anyway, what I do want to draw your attention to straight away is over here. Now, there are 2 screw holes. You've got the one there with the screw in, and then you have the one slightly higher. Well, there is one lower down as well. You can see the screw hole and then the screw hole. Now effectively these 2 screw holes are so you can space the end plate up and down. I don't understand why you would want to move it up unless you've got massive cabling, but I have it in the lowest setting. Now with it in the very, very lowest setting, what this does mean is we have 357mm of room for graphics cards. Now when we're talking about room for graphics cards, you can actually move the foot over a little bit, change the top, and then that effectively means after a quick movement of this rear panel, what this does mean is we can add even more room for width for cards as well. But I'm going to leave it in this guise just so that we can show you graphics card lengths. Now 357mm of length. I'm going to be honest, the Strix is 357.6, so we're about half a mil over. Now half a mil over is fair enough. We know it's technically not going to fit, but it is a struggle. Now I'm gonna be honest. Look, I'm gonna show you because I've filmed this quite a few times. If you have a look, can you see the silvery bits all around here? Okay, all this. That's basically been done by the Strix because it's very tight. It's like meme-worthy tight with a girl with 5 big blokes stood behind her. But what you effectively have to do is kind of push the top to open the case out and then get it in. Now, it will go in. So this is the thing. I'm telling you a Strix will go in. Cooler Master have also shown me a picture from Battle Rigs with an Aorus Master in there as well. So it will fit a 357mm graphics card. It will fit a 357.6. It will fit a 358. But you do have to put your brave pants on and pretty much prise the case apart to be able to get it in. Now, normally this is a normal thing for me. I will pull a case apart to put a big graphics card in. I do think Cooler Master have been that little bit optimistic with their sizings though, and I personally think the absolute most I would be publishing as a possible fit for this case would be 355. I actually think something more like 352, 353 would be healthier so that you can get your graphics card in there with a little bit more dignity. Now, the ITX crowd are used to tight fitting componentry, but I think abusing your case to put £1,000, maybe sometimes even a higher value card in is going to make more than people nervous than is relatively needed. Now, I am going to leave that point there. That is something for you to decide at home. A Strix does fit. Some Masters do fit, although it's now turning out there's like 1 mil and 2 mil between even 4080s and 4090s. Now, they always used to be the same. The Strixes have always been identical. This is a 3070, this is a 4070, which is the same as the 4070 Ti, and then I got a 4080 Super out, and they're all the same size. Maybe it's just the Aorus ones that have got a few mil difference, but this is the same. Anyway, that's why I always use a Strix, because they're normally the biggest graphics cards, you know, to have to be dealt with. Anyway, other thing to address while we're here is this here. That is the only place for airflow to go into that top radiator. So that's all you can see of the 120mm fan. I'm going to say that I know it's going to weaken things, and I know that they've got all these bracings in here, but I do think I'd end up getting a Dremel to this so that it was slightly better airflow. The vent at the bottom doesn't actually go into the rad, it's just there. There is no throughput from the other side. The only throughput from the other side is through the power supply. Now, something I do have to say about their SFX power supplies is this fan always runs. So there's always going to be a margin of air going through. Now, don't confuse the airflow pattern of a power supply. I get it when I talk about this quite a lot, but that is the intake. The other bit of the power supply is the exhaust. So there is always going to be a bit of airflow going through. Now, you do have to incredibly stress these SFX power supplies out for them to kick into the 100% mode. There is also no way for you to be able to control that fan. It's all done internally. So you're always going to be stuck, for the most part, for most people, with that fan just on at like, I don't know, like 50% or whatever it is. But it's not noisy unless you're very sound sensitive. But that's the only other airflow that goes into the top. So like I said, I think I would be of the opinion of opening these parts out anyway, so that we had a slightly clearer airflow path. But we do need to remember that by cutting things, it will weaken the structure, which I will say, that's only really going to make any difference if you're going to move it around a lot. Otherwise, once it's on your desk, don't move it too much, and then you're not going to have to worry about it wobbling, because the doors or the sides are going to play a part in the structure anyway. And you can get some right angled braces. If you're Dremel inclined, you can get right angled braces to add in and add some extra strength anyway. Obviously round the back you can see the 120. We've already covered this, but it's all uncovered. We can see it lovely. This will technically be an airflow exhaust for the bottom of your graphics card, because if we put the graphics card up that way with the fans blowing in the graphics card, you are going to get airflow out here. So you've got a gap for it to naturally radiate, then you've got the fan as well for it to be able to get pulled out of. And we also do need to remember there's obviously a lot of vents around the chassis anyway. So I have refilmed the end of this video several times. I've refilmed the end of this video several times because I kept going through phases with the graphics card lengths. Points to remember is we don't measure the bracket at the bottom of the graphics card that bolts into the case. You are just measuring the body. I did make a mistake not measuring the tiny little end bits on the Strix, and technically the Strix doesn't fit the case, although you can get it in. I would say though that from their measuring, I just wanted it to have a little bit more clearance, and that's for no other reason than to make it easier for people at home. Because I think if you are building your first case, or you've not built ITX before, it might be a little bit nerve-wracking. But as you can see, it does fit. You just need to get a little bit brave, give it a little bit of a pull, maybe get a friend to help you. You can get it in. With the extra width, you can get massive graphics cards in anyway, and it is really all about the width. I do personally think though, if you're going to go 1490, then if you're going 1490, Founders Edition or under that 355 limit is the way forward. They did obviously say 850 watt power supply will run a 1490. I have tested it, it does work. But I am going to say that from everything that I was given from Nvidia and everyone else since, they always said 1200 watts. For a 1490. I've comfortably battered a 1490 with an overclock on 1000 watts. I do think though that the way that they worded graphics cards was not to have one with an overclock. I think it's more going to come down to the power limit that the card has got, because the graphics cards naturally overclock themselves anyway. There's normally not a great deal between the cards until you get to the ridiculous like Strix OCs, the Masters, and from there on out, like the really big hitting cards that are basically throwing everything at it. But with like a Founders or something, I've got to admit I'd probably be on the undervolt situation with an 850 watt, and I probably, just as a guide, wouldn't be using any extra power limit for the 850 watt either. The other side of it's going to be processor. Obviously cooling is always going to become a problem with a processor. So if you were going to push me for a processor for this right now, I wouldn't want above a Ryzen 5 or an i5. So if we were to say 14600K on this, I'd probably still want to do an undervolt on it to keep everything playing nice. But if you did go 14600K without an undervolt, gaming would be fine. It's only going to become a problem if you're doing like long video edits, anything with AVX12 or benchmarking, which I don't think the majority of people will anyway. And if you keep things kind of in perspective, then you'll have more power to free up for your graphics card. When testing full systems, which is the way we do it, because I don't test graphics card power, I test full system power. For my 4090 testing, when I've done it, I've been getting about 750 watts top end. So there is a tiny bit of headroom there. You are just going to have to go careful though, because we obviously don't want it running at 850 watts all the time. When you get with this power supply, 750 to 800 watts, that fan is going to kick into full speed mode. And by that I mean it will go from its normal running and it will just instantaneously go full speed, and you will hear it. So if you are 4090, keep that in mind. Keep all of the advice that I've got in mind, because you can get it to work without it becoming a nuisance. Now, before we wrap up, because I do really like this, I think I tested the Corsair ITX recently and I didn't rate it because of the cabling. It was awful. This actually looks like they've made an effort with the power supply connectors and the power supply lengths, and I do just really like it. But the one thing I do like about this is it's got a bit of a tweak about it, and I want to know whether you guys at home want to see candy red outside panels, white panels, or what other colours that you'd like to see, because I am going to ship these off to my friendly local powder coater. People always say, oh, we don't know a powder coater. I only know my powder coater because I googled powder coater, I found one near me, and I turned up with donuts and sausage rolls and went, I've got some really annoying jobs that are small that I need doing, but I need someone I can trust and rely on, and now John's a mate of mine. So don't be afraid to pick the phone up and just post it to him. But do you want to see these in white, candy red, I don't know, lime green, purple? Basically, we're going to take a look at them. I'm probably going to do candy red or white anyway. I think Cooler Master are going to send me another set, so we've got the opportunity to do something funky, and you never know what might happen once I've got another one here as well. Anyway, so I actually think when it comes to an award for this, and I didn't mention this with the last take on the video because I wasn't sure where I was going to swing. But it's an ITX case, it can fit an awful lot in. Yes, with the 359 price, it's expensive, but obviously you do get cooling and a power supply as well as your case. And it's kind of partially built for you with the cables routed and stuff as well. And there's a lot of customization. So I actually think it's an enthusiast case. You're not going to buy it by mistake. You're going to buy it because you want to build a high-end ITX rig with a very small footprint. And that is why I'm going to give it the OC3D Enthusiast Award. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I actually want to do stuff with it myself. But then again, I like the fact with a lot of Cooler Master cases, I can take a chunk of it off, send it to the powder coaters and make something look very different. And yes, this is how I've been testing the last few days.